What's up guys, John from Tasty Squad here, back with another review. Today we'll be looking at Rise of the Tomb Raider 20-year anniversary edition, or as I like to call, yay, PlayStation finally got a fucking version of this game 1 year later. So let's get started. Now, first thing I'll be talking about is the story. Now the overall plot of the game, I'll summarize it real quick. Laura's father, Richard Croft, was looking into something that he thought was a secret to immortality and had to do with the immortal prophet and the divine source. It led to his name being shamed and him ultimately killing himself. Thus, after Laura comes back from her, travels in Yamatai from the first game, she starts to delve into her old father's research and realizes, this looks like it has some merit, it's worth looking into, maybe clear her father's name. And from there she discovers that not only was her father close to finding it, but, he was actually almost there. But along the way, she realizes that a group was hunting her father, and not only that, hunting this immortal prophet since the early AD days, and that was called the Order of Trinity. So the whole game boils down to Laura racing against Trinity, trying to find out if the divine source exists, and who's going to get their hands on it. Now, the overall simple structure of the plot like that, I like it, it's interesting, I like how things work out, and it's overall a good story. It has that whole mysticalness to it, it has all that kind of stuff that it needs, but for me, where the story fails is the lack of care for the characters. Now, besides Laura, I don't give a shit about any of the other characters in the entire game. And I know, for the villains, you're not supposed to care about them, but there is no personal connection with any of the other characters throughout the entirety of the game. And that's not a good thing. I should feel connected when, say, I'm playing with someone that's supposed to be my ally, or someone I'm trying to help, and I really just don't give a shit about anyone else in this game. The characterization is done very badly. They're not bad characters, or they don't have bad roles within the story of the game. I just, for some reason, Crystal Dynamics couldn't make these characters hit personally with me. So I didn't relate to them, and I didn't like them in the end. And that is a huge damper on a story when you don't care about characters within that story. You gotta care more about than just the main character. And lastly, even though I like the story, it had a How I Met Your Mother, which means I like literally everything up until the end, and then the end just killed it for me. They did something that really made it feel like everything you had done was worthless. So that's my thoughts on the story of the game. Moving on now to gameplay. So moving on to talking about gameplay, first thing I want to talk about is combat. Now, combat works very similar to most third-person shooter games. It's a TPS at its core, and it works very similar to that of Uncharted, or more closely related to The Last of Us. By that I'm meaning, unlike Uncharted, it has more of that cover system where you just walk up to something you can be in cover in, and then you're in cover. I honestly don't like this system. I like a more traditional, if I'm on something I can get in cover, I like to go into cover mode by pressing or holding down a button. That way I stay cover. But here it's, it's the whole, you get low when you're in combat and you move faster and, that whole thing. But besides that, combat overall is good. You have a choice of 4 weapon types. You have your bow, pistol, long gun, and shotgun. Now each one of those weapons also has different types, so there's more than 4 weapons in the game. There's 5 or 6 bows, 5 or 6 of each gun, and they all have different effects which make them unique to the gameplay, and that's very interesting. But however, I feel that throughout the main story, you're getting different items as you go along. The last one you get is the shotgun. I feel like once you get the shotgun, the long gun and the pistol pretty much become useless, because you can use the bow for your range and stealth-like technique, and you can use the shotgun when things go crazy and you have to eliminate guys quickly. So I feel like, personally, the long gun and the shotgun are pretty much fucking useless about halfway through the game. But that being said, Each gun has its own uniqueness and they all have different purposes. And like I said, I preferred a more stealthy approach to my gameplay. So I would use the bow, take out as many guys as possible with headshots, and then if shit went downhill and I was exposed to open combat, I would then take out the shotgun and go from there. There's also other aspects to the combat, like stealth, where you can aim back and you can sneak up on guys and do a stealth takedown with your knife, or if you haven't gotten the knife yet, with your axes. There's also the whole melee aspect. You can use your double axe and dodge a lot, which is actually a really good technique once you get to like the very last part of the game and fight those really special enemies. So overall, the gameplay, it's solid. I won't say it's amazing, There's other games that do this gameplay style better, but overall, it offers a lot to it, and it works. And what more can you really ask for from a game? Not every game can have amazing combat, especially a game as big as this that has a lot going on. I will say, however, though, my biggest gripe with the combat is the fact that I never felt like I could move my crosshairs fast enough to get on the enemies. And that really annoyed me. Even when I turned on my sensitivity, I still couldn't do it. But besides that, the gameplay is pretty solid, combat-wise. A huge gameplay aspect of Rise of the Tomb Raider is crafting. Now, crafting is a key, essential aspect of the entire game. And the crafting here is done very well, in my opinion. It's not overly complicated. It's simple yet challenging. Well, not challenging, it's simple yet you don't always have what you need. You do at times have to go look for certain items, and certain items are used to make certain things. Like for instance, there's mushrooms that you have to go hunt down. Those help you to make poison arrows. They're special kind of ore to help you make explosives. There's all kinds of unique, crafting sources found throughout the game that allow you to craft unique items and weapons. But not only that, you use the crafting to improve your gear and improve your weapons with things like gears and springs and cloth and oil. There's so many different substances, and they all make sense too. That's what makes it really interesting, is the things you use to make things make sense. Not many games do that, or used to not do that, but here the crafting feels justified and it's really appreciated. It adds a whole level dimension and engagement of gameplay, because I'm that kind of player where I cannot continue in a story till I feel like I have the best possible weapon and armors available to me at the time. So the crafting here will keep you at that level of engagement and keep you you'll be amazed how much time you spend running around one of these areas just to find a boar or just to find a bear. So crafting overall is done very well. It was honestly one of my favorite gameplay aspects of the entire game. So good job, Crystal Dynamics. Crafting is awesome. Now, as a sort of apology to PlayStation fans that have been waiting for the game one more year than they really should have, this version of the game was released with unique DLC that Xbox players I don't think got. And those were Blood Ties and Laura's Nightmare. Now, I can honestly say I haven't played Laura's Nightmare yet, but Blood Ties is a very, very good expansion. It'll take about an hour and a half to play, and it's really all story based, and it's so good. And I have to say, apology acceptable, Crystal Dynamics. This edition was a nice addition, and thank you for it. Now, to my surprise, the game included a mode called Endurance Mode. A mode I had no idea even existed, but once I stumbled upon it, I thought it was phenomenally done. Endurance Mode is appropriately named. It's an endurance run. It's a race for survival. See how long you can really last in this Siberian wilderness, battling the elements, battling enemies. And while you're trying to do all of this, you also have to face off against actual enemies. You have to face off against the Order of Trinity. There is wolves and bears out to kill you. So not only are you fighting to survive from just the cold and hunger, there's also actual enemies to worry about as well. one great thing about this mode too is it's a good test of your skill. And another great thing about it is you can do this entire mode co-op, and it's a hell of a challenge. If you have a friend and y'all both have the game, I really strongly urge you check it out and see how long you can really last. It is a very unique mode that I have not really seen anything like it before, and I really appreciated being there. I haven't played it that much, but a couple of times I did play it, I really enjoyed myself. I felt that in a game that I already felt was good, here it is still giving. And not only that, there's also tons of other different modes throughout the game as well. There's score attack, there's... I can't remember them all off the top of my head right now, but this game has so much replay value to it. Endurance, in my opinion, is probably the best one out of all the extra modes, simply for its uniqueness and the fact that you can play it co-op. But there's modes where you go through chapters of the game and you're racing against the clock to get your best score. That's a good challenge mode as well. You also have, you can replay the story modes again and get bonus credits to buy the cards. There's a mode where you can play through again with all your equipment and really crank up the difficulty to see if you're really good or not. There's customized missions that you can play. This game has so much more to it than just the story mode, which I really was surprised by, because a game like Tomb Raider that already offers so much in its single player, you don't really expect much more than that. And here we are getting a mode that I found very enjoyable, along with several other modes that I thought were pretty good and well worth a checkout. So if you haven't already, you really should check out Endurance and check out some of the other gameplay aspects as well. Another aspect of the gameplay is hunting. Now throughout the game, you're slowly building Laura. You're building her skills, you're building her weaponry, and you're just overall it's one of those games, it's like a Far Cry, where you just keep improving your skills and your weapons. And one of the main aspects of that whole thing is hunting, because throughout the entirety of the game you're gonna need skins, and you're gonna need exotic skins, and you're gonna need feathers and all kinds of different animal parts to really get these weapons and items to a level that you want them. And while hunting is, something that's available in the game, it's not really something that you have to do a lot, but it is there, so I thought I'd talk about it. It's not too hard. It's a lot of patience. It's kind of like real hunting, and a lot of the time you need deer antlers, so you go to a place, sit in a stand, and you wait for deer. And it's pretty much like real hunting. It's not particularly very exciting, but it's an aspect that's in the game, and it's stuff you're gonna need to have, so might as well be patient and hang back and shoot yourself a couple deer. So yeah, that's the hunting. It's there. It's alright. It works. You get what you need from it. Nothing too special, but nothing too boring. A big part of this game is it's not necessarily open world, but it does have these hub areas, and within these hub areas you're allowed to explore, like I said, find materials for crafting, but also there's all kinds of side missions and objectives to do. There's caves to explore, crypts to explore, challenge tombs where the goal is to puzzle solve, and that's also a really good aspect of the game that adds a lot of gameplay time, is exploring and trying to do all these side missions and objectives. I was honestly surprised that Rise of the Tomb Raider had legitimate side missions. And that was a very well done aspect of the game and really added to the length of it all. So I've said a lot about this game, some good, some bad, some but overall, Rise of the Tomb Raider was a very enjoyable gameplay experience. I'm glad I got it. And I'm going to break down my, tasty rankings in 3 tiers this time, doing something a little new. So first things first, the story. Now the story is the Tasty Squad equivalent of a 6 out of 10, and that's an appetizer. And by that I mean, like an appetizer, it's good for a minute, but you're still expecting the full entree later on. And that's one thing about the story of Tomb Raider that I never got. It never filled me up completely. I left the story wanting more from it, and not wanting more in a good way, like it ended on such a good note, I can't wait for the next game. It was more of a wanting more, like, oh man, I really felt like there was just something they needed a little bit more on. They needed to expand a little bit more on this. But overall, 6 out of 10, that's not bad. It's better than, 0 out of 10. Now, on to the gameplay. The gameplay is the Tasty Squad equivalent of an 8 out of 10, which is appetizing. Appetizing mean, it was a good meal, you got filled up, you had everything you could possibly need, some of the things that you wanted. You could go for some more, but at the same time, you're completely 100% satisfied with what you had, and that's exactly what the gameplay did for me. And I think that has to do more with, because it did have one or two things that I was like, about, like, the reticle not moving fast enough on the enemies, or, just little tweaks and things like that. But overall, the gameplay was immersive, it was fun, and that was a big reason I kept playing the game. It's very rare that I keep playing a game for the gameplay rather than the story. And this is one of those times that I did, which just goes to show that the gameplay was pretty fucking excellent. 8 out of 10, appetizing, that's a good score. So overall, I'd also give the game an overall 8 out of 10, or appetizing. If you haven't already, go check it out. It's a wonderful game, well worth your money. As a whole, the game was a great experience. I enjoyed my time with it. Really, the only thing I have to complain about was I felt that the story was a little lacking, but overall, wonderful game. Appetizing, 8 out of 10. So if you haven't already, please go check out Rise of the Tomb Raider on PS4, Xbox One, or PC. And as always, guys, thank you so much for watching. Please hit that thumbs up, leave a comment, let us know what you thought, and as always, stay tasty.